What if I told you the silver screen wasn't always so shiny? Behind the glamour, the tuxedos, and the flashing spotlights, some of Hollywood's brightest stars carried shadows darker than any film reel. From courtroom scandals to back-alley brawls, their off-screen lives read like thrillers the studios tried to bury. This isn't just movie history, it's a confession booth in celluloid. And by the end, you'll wonder, were these legends actors playing heroes or villains hiding in plain sight? Fatty Arbuckle. Let's start with Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle, the jolly giant of silent comedy. On screen, he was pure fun, falling over chairs, tossing pies, and making audiences roar with laughter. However, in 1921, his world came crashing down. A headline trial accused him of a terrible act that shocked the nation. 3 trials later, he was acquitted, yet the stain never washed out. Here's what you won't read in the studio gloss. Arbuckle's fall became the first Hollywood scandal to dominate front pages coast to coast. The press turned him into a villain before a verdict was even reached. Did you know that the film industry itself nearly shut down due to public outrage? Theater chains banned his movies, and even though the jury cleared his name, Arbuckle's career was finished. It's chilling when you think about it. Hollywood built him up as one of its first megastars, then dismantled him just as quickly. Arbuckle's story is a reminder of how fragile stardom really is. One headline can turn laughter into silence. Robert Mitchum. Fast forward to 1948, and we find another star in trouble, Robert Mitchum. With sleepy eyes and a voice like gravel, Mitchum was the ultimate film noir anti-hero. But off-screen, he lived as recklessly as the drifters he played. One night, the police came knocking, and Mitchum ended up behind bars. Now here's the twist. Instead of destroying his career, the scandal weirdly boosted it. The studio spun it as proof Mitchum was the real deal, a tough guy who lived outside the lines. Did you know Life magazine even staged a photo spread of him sweeping prison floors? It was meant as damage control, but it made him look more authentic than ever. The result? When Mitchum walked back onto movie sets, he wasn't tarnished. He was mythologized. Audiences believed he wasn't just acting in noir films, he was living them. In an era obsessed with polished idols, Mitchum's rough edges made him unforgettable. Errol Flynn. Now, let's swing into the 1940s, where a certain swashbuckler was stealing hearts and headlines. Errol Flynn, Robin Hood himself, the dashing rogue with a sword in one hand and a grin that could light up a theater. On screen, he was the hero every boy wanted to be and every girl wanted to cheer for. But off-screen, Flynn's adventures were far less noble. In 1942, he found himself in court, facing charges that threatened to end his career for good. Newspapers devoured the story, splashing his name across every front page. Yet here's the twist. Instead of burying him, the trial only fueled the legend. Fans lined the courthouse steps, holding signs, begging for his freedom. When he was acquitted, Hollywood wasted no time spinning the outcome into a tale of the rogue who always wriggled out of danger. Did you know Flynn leaned into the controversy so much that the phrase "in like Flynn" became part of pop culture slang? His scandal didn't erase the sparkle, it added a dangerous edge. For some stars, trouble ruins everything. For Errol Flynn, it turned him into Hollywood's ultimate bad boy, a legend forever perched between gallantry and chaos. Charlie Chaplin. Now picture the most famous man in the world, the little tramp himself. Charlie Chaplin, with the bowler hat, the cane, and that funny waddle. To millions, he was pure innocence, a clown with a heart of gold. But step behind the curtain, and Chaplin's story took a darker turn. In 1944, he was charged under the Mann Act, accused of transporting a woman across state lines for immoral purposes. The trial became a media circus, blending politics, morality, and stardom into one messy storm. Chaplin was acquitted, but the damage was done. His once untouchable image was suddenly fragile, human, flawed. Here's a detail many forget. The U.S. government kept Chaplin under surveillance for years, suspicious of his politics, his associations, his outspoken views. The man who once made the world laugh with silent pratfalls suddenly found himself silenced. Not by film, but by whispers and suspicion. Did you know Chaplin eventually left America altogether, choosing exile over the endless scrutiny? For a man who gave the world joy, his departure was a bittersweet finale. His films remained timeless, but his life revealed just how quickly a nation could turn on its brightest star. Spade Cooley. Now, if you thought those stories were wild, wait until you hear this one. Meet Spade Cooley, once crowned the King of Western Swing, a bandleader who charmed dance halls and even dabbled in B-movie acting. On stage, he was smooth. Off stage, his life unraveled into something far darker. In the early 1960s, Cooley was convicted after a shocking act that ended his wife's life. Hollywood gasped. The newspapers called it one of the most chilling downfalls in entertainment history. Gone was the charm, the swing, the cowboy twang. In its place stood a broken man sentenced to life behind bars. But here's the haunting twist. While serving time, Cooley was granted parole to perform a benefit concert. On stage, under the bright lights, he looked like the star he once was, smiling, leading the band, soaking up applause. And then, moments later, he collapsed backstage and died. Did you know his last words were reportedly filled with gratitude for the chance to play again? Spade Cooley's story is unlike any other. A star who fell as hard as one can fall, but whose final bow was taken in front of an audience, as if fate itself couldn't resist one last curtain call. His last moments were spent in the spotlight, applause echoing, a curtain call that no screenwriter could invent. Lyle Talbot. Every studio had its utility actor, the face that could slip into a gangster role one week and a romantic lead the next. For Warner Brothers in the 1930s, that man was Lyle Talbot. Smooth-talking, handsome, always in the right place when the cameras rolled. But off-screen, Talbot had a habit of finding himself in the wrong place, at the wrong time, usually with a drink in hand. Police blotters in Los Angeles became strangely familiar with his name. Arrests for disorderly conduct, late-night escapades that ended in shouting matches or drunken stumbles. It was all part of Talbot's double life. Did you know gossip columnists once joked that Talbot spent as much time in courtrooms as he did in casting offices? But here's the twist. Unlike some of his peers, Talbot didn't vanish. He reinvented. As the studio system shifted, he leaned into character roles, eventually becoming a familiar face on early television. From The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet to Batman in the 1960s, he kept popping up, proof that Hollywood loves a survivor. Talbot's stumbles didn't erase his legacy. They added grit to his long, winding career. Lawrence Tierney. Now picture a man who looked like trouble, and proved it at every turn. Lawrence Tierney had the face of a tough guy, the kind of actor you believed when he walked into a smoky bar and growled a line of dialogue. His breakthrough came in Dillinger, 1945, where he played the infamous bank robber with chilling realism. But off-screen, Tierney didn't need a script to cause chaos. Bar fights, arrests, reckless behavior, Tierney turned nightlife into a contact sport. Studio heads whispered that hiring him was like lighting a match near gasoline. Did you know that by the 1950s, his reputation was so bad he was practically blacklisted? Directors simply couldn't risk the explosions. And yet, Tierney had a strange Hollywood resurrection decade later. In 1992, Quentin Tarantino cast him as Joe Cabot in Reservoir Dogs. On screen, he was menacing perfection. Off-screen, the stories say he clashed with the cast, stormed off set, and even terrified the younger actors. Tierney didn't mellow with age. He remained the same rough-edged figure until the end. Some actors play gangsters. Tierney just lived like one. William S. Hart. Before John Wayne, before Clint Eastwood, there was William S. Hart, the original cowboy hero of silent cinema. With his weathered face and moral gravity, Hart embodied the Old West like no one else. Audiences adored him. Kids played cowboys because of him. He was, for a time, untouchable. But even legends stumble. In the 1920s, Hart's name got dragged into a scandal when accusations threatened to tarnish his carefully crafted image. The charges were dropped, but the whispers never quite faded. Hollywood, always hungry for the next new face, moved on. Did you know Hart retreated to a ranch in Newhall, California, where he spent the rest of his life? He donated his home to the public, turning it into a museum of Western lore. It's still there today, a reminder of the man who once defined cowboy honor but couldn't entirely outrun controversy. Hart's story feels like a frontier ballad: triumph, trouble, and finally retreat into the sunset. A cowboy hero on screen, but a man shadowed by the same fragility as every star on this list. Tom Neal. If you've ever watched Detour, that gritty, low-budget noir from 1945, you've seen Tom Neal at his haunting best. He played a man whose life spirals after one wrong decision. Critics later called it the purest film noir ever made. But here's the chilling part. Neil's own life mirrored his characters. In Hollywood, Neil was handsome, talented, but volatile. His reputation took a major hit after a brutal, very public fistfight with actor Franco Tone over actress Barbara Payton. That scandal branded him as dangerous, and roles dried up. The once promising star of Detour became a cautionary tale, and then came the darkest twist. In 1965, Neil's wife was killed, and he was convicted of involuntary manslaughter. He served 6 years before being released, a shadow of the actor he once was. Did you know that critics now look back at Detour almost as prophecy? Neil's character drifts into doom on screen, and Neil himself drifted there in life. His story isn't just Hollywood noir, it's real noir, a tragic reminder that sometimes the role consumes the actor. Hedy Lamarr. Now let's close with a star who was more than just beautiful, Hedy Lamarr. On screen, she was radiant, the dazzling centerpiece of films like Samson and Delilah. Off-screen, she was a genius inventor whose work laid the foundation for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. But even Lamarr wasn't immune to Hollywood's shadow. In 1966, she was arrested for shoplifting. The charges were later dropped, but the story stuck. And it wasn't her only brush with accusations of theft. For a woman who had helped reshape technology itself, the headlines painted her as a fallen glamour queen caught in petty trouble. Did you know Lamarr once said, "Any girl can look glamorous. All she has to do is stand still and look stupid"? She hated being seen only as a beauty. The irony? History remembers her both as one of the most gorgeous faces in film and one of the most brilliant minds in science. The shoplifting arrests are just side notes in a story far bigger than a scandal. Lamarr's life proves Hollywood stars weren't one-dimensional. They could be innovators, dreamers, and yes, sometimes imperfect humans who stumbled in public view.